Seated. I like that song because it has a nice balance between what we do and what God does. There's some parts of that song I'm not sure I like, but I like the balance between what God does and what we do. As we look at this story today, we've all heard the phrase, boys will be boys. I don't know if you can see that one. Perfect timing. Bucket of water on Grandpa, I tell you. Boys will be boys. Kings will also be kings. I need to introduce this next slide very carefully. I don't think we should make fun of our president, but I thought this slide fit. And he gets pictures taken of him almost 24/7. I don't think he can blink without somebody taking a picture. And boys will be boys. I don't know what he's doing. It might be entirely innocent. I do know that David was not being entirely innocent. Kings will be kings. Today we have a classic tale of betrayal, of adultery, of murder, and it turns out that our hero is actually the villain. We have spent the last, I don't know how many weeks studying in Samuel, and David is just being built up and built up and built up, and he is God's ideal king, and now he turns out to be a total sinner, a total jerk, and why in the world did he ever show up in the first place? Everything changes here. There's a group that puts out demotivational posters. This is a demotivational poster. It says change. It's a short trip from riding the waves of change to being torn apart by the jaws of defeat. See the shark floating in the water with him. Seriously, this is what's been happening with David. He has been riding the waves of change. You know, Saul has been deposed. He has gotten to be king. He's gotten a new capital. He's gotten a new home for the ark. By the way, did you ever see the ark?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah? Okay. The ark is in Ethiopia, by the way, in an island in a river. So I thought maybe you got to see it. Never mind. ADD moment. Anyway, he's being torn apart. And today he really does get torn apart. David, we need to understand, has serious flaws in his personality. The author of Samuel has not been trying to hide these. He's just telling a tremendous story. He's just telling a tremendous story. And he's been building him up. And today we see his downside. But even in David's sin, he is an ideal king because he repents genuinely. He repents completely. He repents quickly. And when he when he fails in following after God's ideal plan, even then, he comes back and shows us how to live. Well, the story actually starts back in chapter 10, and diplomacy is breaking down with the Ammonites. The Ammonites were the Israelites' neighbors to the east, and they had been friends with David for a long time. David doesn't expect war with the Ammonites. They've been his allies, maybe because he was fighting against Saul, and they thought maybe he was a balance against Saul. But now there's war. Nahash was that old ally of David, but his son treats David's ambassadors with tremendous discourtesy, cuts off their beards, cuts off their clothes, sends them back so that they can't even go to their own country because things are so horrible. Now, there's an interesting word that we encounter there for the first time, and we will see it throughout these couple chapters. And that word is send. It doesn't seem like a great theological word, but it's the word that ties everything that happens together in these chapters. These two kings are busy sending to and against each other in this power play. You know, David sent ambassadors. The king of Ammon sends them back. Then David's going to send off his troops to war. As we come into these Ammonites' war. At the beginning of this, Joab is forced to fight a battle on two fronts. This is a picture from, I think, World War II, where the Germans encircled the French line and just outran them. And so they were forced to fight a battle not only from the east, but from the west. Joab has to do the same thing. Somehow or other, he gets surrounded, and he tells his brother, you have to face the back, I'll face the front. If you get in trouble, I'll send men. If I get in trouble, you send men. He says to his brother, be strong and fight bravely, adding that God will do whatever seems best to him. This is a great verse because it is that balance between what God does and what we do. You know, God needs to do everything, so we pray. But we need to do our part, so we give. God does all of what he's supposed to do. We need to do all what we're supposed to do. Joab was supposed to fight. He didn't know if he'd win or lose. Maybe God will give us the victory. God will do it all. He will give us victory if he wants to. If not, we're going to die. But we're going to do our part. The same is true in the Christian life. We do our part, God does his part. Work out your salvation, for it is God who works in you, is the motto there. We need to have that balance between effort and faith. Well, Joab wins that battle. He goes on to fight the city, but he's unable to move against the city at that time, because the Arameans have come into the picture. The Arameans were the next big empire to Israel's north. They were the real threat to David's kingdom. And they were going to fight there at the Giesbrecht River where that little balloon is. And this time, David leads his men into battle. And they win a decisive victory. David shows that God is with him. But things are about to change. Because at the beginning of chapter 11, it says that David stays in Jerusalem. He doesn't go out the next time. At the time when kings go off to war, he stayed at home. Now, this is a terrible thing, because instead of, defending his subjects, he's going to start abusing them. And the whole thing is going to go south. It says that David sent Joab. David is the king. Kings will be kings. Kings have the power to send. And David remained in Jerusalem. Now, the text doesn't say whether this was bad or not. Frankly, I think it was. I think laziness, a little bit of sloth, a little bit of, it's my day off, I'm not going to read the Bible today, is the start of a lot of sins. Oh no, it's Memorial Day, let's go to the lake and we won't go to church. Is the start of a lot of sins. It's not necessarily bad. In chapter 21, verse 7, it says his men wanted him to stay home. And that was a good thing. But he stays home. And so we come to this story of David up on the rooftop, seeing the wife of Uriah the Hittite, Bathsheba, and a whole spiral of sin starts. The author wants to draw us into this story. He wants us to show us that we are all capable of this dark behavior. David sees a beautiful woman bathing on a nearby rooftop. It's late evening. Rooftops were very cool places in those days, and so they would go up there in the cool of the evening, and he sees her. She was very beautiful.